Today we are considering long-awaited cybersecurity legislation. At the last full committee markup, I stated the view that this legislation, to be effective, it must do three things. Number one, address the growing cyber threat to critical infrastructure network. Number two, promote and enhance information sharing between and among the private sector and the federal government while protecting the privacy and civil liberties of Americans using the Internet. And number three, solidify and enhance the Department of Homeland Security's role as the federal government's lead for federal network security and private sector cyber support. At that markup, I was given assurance from Subcommittee Chairman Lundgren and you, Chairman King, that those three elements would be intact when we considered cyber legislation at the full committee. We reviewed the new amendment in the nature of a substitute at 9:58 a.m. yesterday. I studied it closely to make sure that the key provisions were intact, but was disappointed to see that was not the case. Unfortunately, this substitute, which was devised behind closed doors with House Republican leadership, bears little resemblance to the measure that the Cybersecurity Subcommittee approved in February. While I do not think the February version of the bill was perfect, it took a number of steps in the right direction and would have measurably strengthened our nation's cyber security posture. This substitute does little to address known risk to critical infrastructure. It replaces the value judgment of dozens of current and former top national security officials with a narrow view of the House Republican leadership. I do not know why I'm surprised. After all, this Congress started with the Speaker directing the formulation of a Republican-only committee to develop cybersecurity recommendations for the full House. Those involved in developing the substitute from the House Republican leadership could surely have benefited from the briefing that House members got yesterday. Top administration officials have repeatedly said that critical infrastructure networks are not adequately protected from the growing threats of cyber attacks, and the status quo is not acceptable. Today, Democratic members will be offering a number of amendments based on the February version of this bill that seeks to bolster efforts at securing critical infrastructure networks and fostering greater privacy protections around information systems. It is my hope that with those in the Republican leadership that are involved in crafting this substitute out of the room, we can work across the aisles in the interests of our constituents. In addition to my concerns about critical infrastructure, I am troubled that the substitute strikes language in the February version of the bill that firmly solidifies DHS as the lead agency for securing federal civilian networks. Since 2003, DHS has been designated as a focal point for the security of cyberspace in the federal government. The watered-down language in this version seems to reflect a far lesser vision for DHS's role in the future. Mr. Chairman, we disagree on many issues, but I thought that at the end of the day, we shared the same vision of DHS's role in securing the homeland, including from cyber threat. And if DHS is not the lead cyber agency, then the question is, who will be the lead? Unfortunately, the message that this substitute sends is that no agency will lead the federal government's cyber efforts. It opens the door to duplication of effort in the extreme. Even though the substitute authorizes the National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center, a move we pushed for, it only authorizes the center to serve as the primary entity within DHS, opening the door for more cyber information sharing centers, not only across the federal government, but within DHS itself. A situation where many agencies are involved in an issue, but no one ultimately responsible, harkens back to a pre-9/11 scenario. In the wake of that tragic day, Congress moved to centralize and streamline the government's intelligence and counterterrorism efforts to eliminate the stovepiping and turf wars that plague the intelligence community. It is my hope, Mr. Chairman, that we can work together on this bill in order to solidify the Department's role in cybersecurity and streamline our government cyber efforts. Such a bipartisan effort is essential so that it is in the unfortunate event of a catastrophic cyber attack, which many believe is coming, we will not be left saying we could have acted. Mr. Chairman, before I yield back, I'd like to introduce 3 items for the record. Securing cyberspace for the 44th presidency, co-chaired by Mr. Langevin and Mr. McCall, cyberspace policy review, as well as recommendations of the House Republican Cyber Task Force.